Yeah, it's the awkward experiment where you see yourself. Perfect timing. You good, Lloyd? Sweet. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight here at Interactive Things for our Data Visualization Zurich meetup. My name is Benjamin. I'm one of the founders and partner at Interactive Things. I'm joined today by Lloyd, who's the man behind the camera for today, taking his place for today. We're also supported by Anastasia, our intern here at Interactive Things, and a couple of other Interactive Things team members. You will see them wearing a badge. So if you have any questions about any of the infrastructure here, or if you have any questions about Interactive Things, feel free to talk to them. I'll start with a little bit of housekeeping, try to keep this brief. This is an active workplace, so you might see client work that we are working on. Please keep this confidential. We do our best to move the confidential stuff away. If you see something on a screen or on a whiteboard, keep it to yourself. Maybe don't take a picture. Otherwise, feel free to take pictures of today's meetup and share them as you see fit. We will do the same, so that's also a good reminder for you. If you feel like you don't want to be portrayed on a picture, talk to Lloyd, and we'll make sure to accommodate for that. We do have a code of conduct. It's listed over there on this whiteboard. It will also be on our website. If you feel, if you have any concerns about that, then do let us know. Reach out to Lloyd, reach out to me, and we'll support you. There's a Wi-Fi if you need it. There's a QR code that you can scan. Otherwise, there's also a sort of like word-based password. Should be fairly easy to remember. You will just join the Interactive Things guest Wi-Fi. Restrooms, if you haven't seen them, they're through that door. The door to the right after that door. So closest to here is for mostly sitting. The one on the left side is for mostly standing. For today, in terms of agenda, we'll do short 5-minute presentations by our speakers, just to give you an overview of the work that they do at the universities that they teach at, and then we'll switch into a panel discussion round. We'll try to keep that around 40 minutes, and then we'll open up for questions that you might have for our speakers. Last but not least, next meetup, we're still confirming, but so far, probably it's going to be May 29th. It's going to be about generative data design. We'll probably have Christian Schneider, who teaches at the Berner Fachhochschule, here giving us a little bit of an intro and a hands-on workshop. So with this out of the way, transitioning over into today. So we set out to organize this meetup with the intent to give everybody an overview over the educational landscape on data visualization in Switzerland. I'm extremely happy that we have the speakers that we do have. I will get to them in a second, but I do think that it's very well represented today. Also, we'll hope to learn a little bit about their educational approaches, what people can expect going to those universities, and maybe what people can expect graduating from those universities. With this, I will just briefly introduce our speakers. I will start on my left with Arzu. She is the head of the Institute for Interactive Technologies at the FHNW. She's also a member of our board of that meetup. So she does have a tight relationship with our meetup in general as well. Arzu and I, we know each other for more than 10 years, loose conversations at first and closer collaboration since then. We'll have Isabelle on my right side. She is the head of the BA in Data Design and Art at the HSLU. Before that, she was at the HTW in Chur, if I remember correctly, which has been renamed then to the Fachhochschule Graubünden. I met Isabelle as she was a guest lecturer at the Masters of Arts in Design at the ZHDK, where I studied. So we got to meet each other there. And then last but not least, we'll have Jürgen Späth. He is the head of interaction design at the ZHDK. I met Jürgen as I was doing my bachelor's at that time. He was our professor. He was my thesis advisor. And I'll have to bring this up here real quick. Jürgen designed this amazing book, which was one of the first in-depth data visualizations that I encountered. If you have a chance, if you have seen it before, you'll know about it. If you haven't, like, grab it and check it out. It's fantastic. Also, Jürgen Späth, during my thesis project, he was my thesis advisor, and we were doing data visualization back then. And Jürgen was like, yeah, like, but have you studied Edward Tufte? And like, we didn't know. And he like brought out this book and he was like, well, it's all in here. And like, wait, we have half a year left. Like, what was the last 2.5 years? Why did you never show us this book? Yeah, so I'm extremely happy to have all of you here today. With this, I will get out of the way. We'll start with the short presentations. We'll go Arzu, then Isabelle, and then Jürgen wraps it up. We can take a seat and have a conversation. All right, thank you so much. Arzu, let's go.
Benji. So, hey everyone. Is my slide supposed to be there? Thank you.
Switch that. Bear with us while we're switching between 3 different systems to present.
At least I didn't try to plug my own computer in, right?
If you share, it should override. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Help you as soon as we transition over.
Thank you very much. All right, hi everyone. So I'm Arzu Coltekin, if you are wondering how to pronounce the last name. It's a Turkish name. The tail usually means che, like in chocolate. But if you call me Coltekin or Söltekin, I answer. So I work at the computer science department now, and I teach in computer science and data science. We are in Brook, it's halfway to Basel from Zurich, 20 minutes or so. And we have these modern buildings, and everything is working and functional. And before that, I was at University of Zurich in Ischgl. Everything was older and less functioning, and the heating didn't work well. And so it's an upgrade from that perspective. I am at the Institute of Interactive Technologies, which is doing all kinds of computer science stuff at the human-computer interaction edge. So we do UX design and development. We have a team that is actually concerned in UX. We have a lot of extended reality and 3D research. We have computer graphics and computer vision, visual computing, visual analytics, spatial computing also now, as actually professorship we just started, regular software development, requirements engineering, and that kind of work. And we have an eye movement lab, a usability lab. We have UX lab. We have a XR, extended reality and media lab. And we are in the middle of these topics of digital sustainability and transformation, generative AI, obviously nobody can escape it right now. And we have information management kind of topics at the Institute. So you could say I do more science of visualization and art of visualization. So I think we're going to have a very beautiful presentation coming up. But I'm offending Tufte because I have bullet lists in my PowerPoint. Ben just said all that, so I'm going to skip that, but maybe to add, I wear a few hats. I'm the institute director for the last 2 years. Before that, I worked as a professor of computer science, human-computer interaction and extended reality, and that's my own face. I never knew what to do with it, so now it's on a slide. And I'm also affiliated with an astronomy group where we do scientific visualization work. It's Harvard. They can't really see the stuff that they work with. The observations are always indirect, no ground truthing really. So visualizations are very important for them. They really have to make decisions based on patterns they see in graphics and visualizations. And 3D is also important because they work with point clouds and gas clouds, and 3D structures are important. So I do some work with them. I grew up in Turkey. I lived in Finland, Holland, a little bit in Canada, and Switzerland is my 5th country, but it seems like it's keeping me. I have been here quite long now. And I also serve in a couple of geospatial communities. ICA is International Cartographic Association, and this is photogrammetry remote sensing, and this is International Society of Digital Earth, which they want to visualize everything that exists on Earth. And I also added the data visualization hat there. So the way that I study visualization, I look at how humans perceive, and if we understand what humans can perceive, how the attention works, how the vision works, how our top-down and bottom-up mechanisms, and then how to translate that to doing visualizations more ergonomic to humans, or it fits better with what we can and cannot process. So I did all kinds of like nitty-gritty, like shadows. I won't show it today, but I look at how people can use shadows to create a 3D effect, and it sometimes generates illusions. So I have a very nice slide deck on this one. Sometime, hopefully in another time, I will show you more. I studied a bit the color, whether we can perceive differences between colors, even if they are in a color space quantitatively described. We did some actual empirical experiments to see, can you tell this shade of red from this shade of red? So this is interesting research because it's not only color blindness or color deficiencies, but also for people who can see it's actually there's perceptual thresholds that are possible to quantify. I looked at levels of realism, so how realistic a visualization should look like, how abstract should we go, in which cases abstraction is more interesting and in which cases realism is more interesting. I also studied visual complexity from a quantitative perspective. Can you feed images of a visualization and can the machine tell us, oh, this is too complex for humans? There are approaches for that. So we have done some computational work there. And interface design, 3 dimensions, the 3D, of course, if you go to InfoFizz conferences, you know, we hate pie charts, we hate rainbows, and we hate 3D, right? So I was like, is it really completely useless or is there some point to it? So there was a lot of research around that. And I did some adaptive visualizations. This project represents that one. I do a lot of eye tracking on visualizations, and since I moved to FHNW, I do a lot of XR, so collaborative mixed reality, virtual reality as labs, how to create virtual reality content. My PhD is in actually photogrammetry, so I'm affine to this topic. And a lot of medical projects popped up from this project where I wanted to study realism and 3D, and then we figured out that recognizable objects, nameable things are more memorable. Nameable colors, people remember better. Nameable objects, they remember better. And then we thought, okay, if it's a PhD project with a SNF funded, and we thought, okay, if it is about memory, let's do a memorability experiment. And then we couldn't ignore age. So we recruited a bunch of older people, 65 to 75, and compared that to younger people. And that led to a lot of health projects for me. So it opened the door for aging. And now I'm doing a lot of dementia prediction and, you know, what can we get from eye movements? How can visualizations or spatial navigation type experiments might actually facilitate collecting markers of dementia, because you can measure micro errors and they are early indicators of cognitive decline. So that's general introduction to I thought maybe something resonates with somebody. One little video clip of eye movements and how you might study visualizations using eye movements is as an example. So here somebody is doing a visual search task. When they are looking at a particular object longer, then it's represented in a larger bubble. So this is somebody's eye movements. They are trying to match this little thing here to the map, and when they find it, they will tell us where it is. So I do a lot of stuff like this. I put a bunch of visualizations, if there is new paradigm, old paradigm, and then I try to understand how do humans process this, how do they study this, and I think if this continues playing, you will see this, we were comparing realism and abstraction in this experiment to some degree. One thing I will show, I will not spend much more time, is that if you do studies like that, it's actually extremely telling where people look, but it's also extremely telling where they do not look. So if you actually show them a task, and the task involves finding Maine and the crime rate in Maine, they don't spend any time on the left of the map because it's irrelevant to the task. If you let them browse without a task, you identify visually salient things or cognitively salient things that for that person something actually drags their interest. But in this type of experiments, you also realize that you put a visual element, and your 30 participants, nobody looks at it. So you know that this is not in the right place, it's not in the right color, it's not in the right size, so you can go through your visual variables and try to fix it. But what is also interesting is that this is a search task where somebody, they have been shown where Maine is, so it's not about finding Maine. And they were told, can you read me the murder rate in 2000 in Maine? And this is my fastest participant, and you can see their eye movements. And then they take 11 seconds, and they, after 25 fixations, so they look at 25 places, and I get the right answer. Now I'm gonna shock you with another participant who's doing the same task. Compare the 11 seconds with 521 seconds, and compare the 25 fixations with 1,181 fixations. And of course, I don't get the right answer. The fact that they are in the West Coast already shows that in the training session, somebody did not pay attention. Maybe they didn't sleep the night before. But I like to use this one and show to my students and say, this is you, and this is possibly a client who needs to read the visualization or the map that you've made. So the lesson here is that you are not allowed to test stuff on yourself or on your classmates. You have to do evaluations on the target group. So there's huge variation, there's huge individual variation, how well we can process information and how quickly we can arrive at conclusions. So now I'm gonna give you a few facts about the teaching. So that was my opening spiel, and I'm way over time. I just realized the time. So we have in our institute, we teach about 33 courses in the fall and 29 in the spring semester. There's computer science and data science programs. We also offer CAS. This is a advanced studies, certificate of advanced studies, so it's professional education. And we have, of course, many bachelor and master's projects. What we do at the CS program, we have a program called iCompetence. It was named before my time. It doesn't make much sense to me, but I think our friends who did this branding had something in mind at the time. There's a lot of design modules, so there's a lot of elements of visualization there. And we have an explicit module on information visualization that appears in both semesters. In fact, we offer in 2 instances, usually 30 students or so per instance can sign up. And Benju has been a guest lecturer on that now a couple of times. We usually do it in a way that is very hands-on. We do a theory input and 2 times 45 minutes every week, so 3-hour contact. Then they do something hands-on, and they have to connect theory with practice. That is one of the key things we ask them to do in their report. So they have to tell us, if they heard about Gestalt, how does that apply to their project? If they heard about visual variables or grammar of graphics, how does it apply to what they are showing us at the end of their project? It is project-based, and usually it's data journalism and storytelling heavy. We show more D3 than other technologies in here, and some examples can be found there from the student outputs. For the data science program, we have a different concept where basically no frontal lectures take place. So we create a sort of a database, a space where we put all kinds of materials, we annotate the materials, and they can basically describe projects. And there we teach 3 visualization classes. One is fundamentals of data visualization, one is interactive visualization, one is visual analytics. And the difference, somebody asked, what is the difference between interactive visualization and visual analytics? Here you don't have to have a backend necessarily. Visual analytics has to have also computational abilities. So you should be able to call from the front end to the back end and create computational stuff. Usually there's some sort of machine learning going on. We also do data challenges that have a lot of data visualization on it. For example, this one is something that I'm running, the digital biomarkers of Alzheimer's disease. Obviously, I'm not the only one who's teaching it, so I have a lot of colleagues, I didn't name them here, who are involved in teaching these classes. For the master's program, my colleague from Mutens, Susan Bleich, is offering an information visualization program that's from FHNW, but for all Masters of Engineering or Master of Science in Engineering program. So because I was a bit, yes, thank you. And this is someone else's visualization. It's actually information visualization. It's not just flowers, but thank you very much for it.
And I'll swap it over for Isabelle.
Nice to see you. So, yeah, good evening. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very Benji also for inviting me. I actually wanted to reintroduce in the same way. I think it's 10 or even more, 12 years ago, right, where we met for the first time. It was one of my first educational experiences that I made. I had some small things before. And there was this one very challenging and ambitious and inspiring guy also who challenged us and who would tell us, why are you asking us to do this in Illustrator? Come on, we can prototype in code directly. And this was so fascinating. So we had about maybe 2 hours of conversations and going this further. It was not the first time that I was working with coders and prototyping in code, but maybe it was the first time that really at school we started sketching by code. And I'm the head of the Bachelor Data Design and Art at the University of Applied Sciences in Lucerne. It's one bachelor of 13 at the Department for Design, Film and Art. We have about 13 bachelor programs, and about 3 master programs. And in Lucerne, at the Design, Film and Art department, we are working with very small bachelor programs. So we are rather broad. We have about 4 different bachelors in visual communication, but I'm working all as independent programs with small classes in the range of 12 to 18 students. What makes it very comfortable also, not comfortable, but more easy to teach than, for example, the whole where we have been 36, right? So Benji told me 5 minutes and I really want to take it short, but now I'm trying to switch. So this is a picture I just made. In the last days, it's our youngest class. As I told you, we started 4 years ago, or 3 years and a half. We had last summer our very first graduates. And this is now the 4th class that started. We are teaching very openly, so we would have 2 classes in one room. We also have almost no front lectures, some we need still, but mainly it's the whole curriculum is purely project-based and also mixed years that we would work together with them. So we are talking rather of coders and students and trying to find out what actually data visualization is. I think this is what differs us from other programs where I also have been teaching for in minors or in smaller courses with a small amount of ECTS. We have 180 ECTS, that's the counting, it's international, you know. So it's 180 ECTS. It's 3 years of education. And I had the chance to actually build up the curriculum from scratch. There was only the name at the beginning and the small concept, the direction where we want to go, and also to build up a team. And so the conversations started right away. There was Christian Schneider also, for example. I made also teaching with him, but I have no time to talk. Maybe later. So we would have a lot of discussion, and each of us thought we know how data visualization goes. One was Tufty, the other was Holmes, the third was doing completely something else, right? And so we had to learn from each other and develop a curriculum that is very open. And maybe only do this to my person. I'm originally an architect. I'm not an information designer, but of course, as an architect, I did a lot of urban planning projects and research, mobility studies, and the information design plays a very important role. And this is maybe also the reason why then the visualization in space got also very important in this curriculum. But before I talk about this, I would like to not show you whole curriculum, but just tell you how started to structurize it. So it was clear that we don't want to just focus on a curriculum that is focusing on skills or goals, but that we do projects and always want to challenge the question, challenge the thematic, and see what would be the best format to work in. So this decision came during this first half year of development to build the curriculum, mainly the first 2 years, around 3 main perspectives. And I just call them think, play, and share. It's very easy to understand. And so in the first 2 years, we have projects that we would look at with the students, but to anyway guide them a little bit through to this very complex and diverse world of data we would always change the focus. So on the first hand, we have, of course, the think modules. The think modules is really about exploring the data, trying to understand data. Why are we working with data? Why do we need data? And also to understand that it's actually not about data. If I make something, I have a data. So it's much more a material that we want to use and make sense of it or meaning or explain something with it. So if I talk about think and analyze, we analyze visually. We are not data scientists, but we try to use also tools and to get a little bit an idea of the visualization, analyze it, to recognize patterns. But then what we really do in so-called data circle, we sit together, we mix coaches and students, and we talk about the topics, right? And reflect it. So let's call it data thinking. And then we have the play modules. That is our biggest, our tallest modules. And there it's very much about experimenting, trying out. We have a lot of workshops at the Hochschule, at the University of Applied Sciences, analog workshop, digital workshops. We can work with wood, we can work with VR, we can work with a lot of different kinds of techniques. And so we would just send the students out and try out. So they experiment. Not only at the school, they do their experiments, for example, with photogrammetry in the forest, or they go also into the city and ask questions to people, so they observe. The observation is a very important part of the play modules, to get an understanding of our society, to get an understanding what questions are asked, and maybe very important also to get an understanding which data is missing. Because the really interesting data often doesn't exist. This is always this moment of frustration when students have an idea what they would like to tell or visualize, and then they see there's no data. And so I try, to frame it in a way, hey, come on, we're students, we're in a school. We don't have to do science, but let's try to think about what this data is and ask some friends, ask a broader range of people. And then with the data we try to find solution, even though they're not representative. But maybe this could be an approach to show significance in getting new data. So let's call it data crafting. It's really about the skills in design and art and being free. Sometimes we even invent data. So it's more about finding out how could I work with data. And then, of course, we are one bachelor that belongs to visual communication. Our students have also to learn how to communicate, how to visually communicate, how to tell stories. We call it data telling, storytelling. And I just told Jürgen, actually, I just now, by putting together the slides, also so that we could also say it's about data design, data art, and data stories. So the design and data design and art is also a little bit represented in this concept, maybe, and maybe we can talk later about it. So to end, I just want to show you quickly some visuals. It's all static. Of course, we do also interactive 3D stuff. I just want to give you a little bit idea. So we are sketching, we are prototyping, we are animating, we are working in the field of magazines or data journalism, but also in trying scientific to publish in scientific magazines on a more broader way. And then we do, as I told you, for example, in the play modules, a lot of experiments where we try, here as an example, focus on the question. So we have to learn to deal with very small data, medium data, and large data. What does this mean? Of course, we can use AI and everything, but first we have to understand what it actually means to work with different ranges of data. And what does this mean for the visualization? So also hypothetic, we would try to find solutions for this. And then mainly, the place is always very important to bring people together that they can think together. So thinking is also coming into the play. The three perspectives or modules are always overlaid. And then we, I told you, I'm an architect, so space is really important for us. Also the conversation with Jürgen. So if you want to create something in space, you can't do it just on a 2D screen. You have to take material into your hand, understand what space actually means, how these three dimensions could be informed and constructed together to get real sense of space. And that's why you're doing also a lot of data sculpturing. Of course, it's nice to see. It also is an occasion to talk about and to talk together. But mainly, it's also a way how we try to get an approach to 3D space before we would then also shift to virtual reality or interactive installations. So, yeah, that's how we work. We think, play, and share. And I just want to end with tomorrow. We will have a little bit improvised but spontaneous event. So we have 2 years that now have been dealing for 8 weeks with topics on mental health. And they did also data models, interactive installations, virtual reality products, and they will expose and present tomorrow, but then mainly expose everything. And so you're all cordially invited to visit us. I'll just say if you have time. And I would close here and thank you very much and happy to talk to you soon.
Hi. Thank you for the invitation to be here. Cool thing. My name is Jürgen Späth, as Benjamin already mentioned. I have a small correction of my title. In the meanwhile, I'm head of BA Major Interaction Design at the University of the Arts. I come to that a little bit later. Our subject area in interaction design deals with interactive environments, objects, and materials. Yeah, one of these people here you will find in the room. So my presentation is probably a little bit different to the first two. I also be a bit spontaneous when Benjamin talking about this book. This book is from 2005, right old. So we started with all these authors writing the text, I think, in 2003. So it's really cool. The coolest thing here inside for me is that there are 22 authors inside this book and with all these articles. And at that time, we visualized and analyzed the articles with this visualization. And so please take a look in that. Subject area interaction design, how we are structured. So we have a 6-semester bachelor, and starting in autumn this year, we will also have a 4-semester MA, and last but not least, a PhD program to complete our subject area. Then we have these 3 research fields. We have 3 labs and at the end, a bunch of people working in our field. Why I'm head of major? It's because last autumn we started with this major minor program. This means that the students have to choose one major and then they can add 2 or 1 minor. It depends on the ECTS points because most of the minors have 15 ECTS points, but there are also minors with 30 ECTS points. Here, the students have the chance to go also in other disciplines, not only in our major field to study. To go back to my BA major interaction design, this is how these 3 years looks like. On the top, in the first 2 semesters, we have a lot of basic things what we give our students in their studying. So we have designing object experience, starting point, 3D, 2D, also graphic design basics, and of course also programming basics. And then in the 3rd semester, that's why Benjamin invited me, there is also a module with data visualization. So we don't have that much space to educate our students in the field of data visualization. But I think that module at that time, so in the last years, it ran about 4 weeks. And now in the change of major minor, I had a chance to extend it for 1 week more. So we have in the next autumn, the first model running for 5 weeks, what is great. And then in the 4th semester, service design, spatial interaction, mobile user interface, where we also go in the direction of AR, XR, MR, whatever you will call it, embodied interaction, and then the studying is always going into the direction of the goal to graduate in the interaction design field. I brought the most, for me, most important thing with me. Since 2019, we have a collaboration with the Grauser Lab of the ETH Zurich, which is great. The Grauser Lab researches global ecosystems and generates knowledge to protect biodiversity and combat climate change. At that time, we also gave a specific framework, and the framework came from that because we wanted to bring the data of the Grauser Lab visualized and interactive to the public, and that would be the base for all these things. In the first year, 2019, the Grauser Lab brought out a really important paper. Maybe some of you have heard about or read in the newspaper about that planting trees will help our Earth, but it was a little bit misunderstood in the newspapers. We also, I think, have two alumni here. They started at that time with data visualization. And as you can see with this token, at that time we had to simulate the whole thing to how to interact with this data. Because for me, not only visualize the data is the thing, we already heard it in the last talk, also this storytelling is really important for the whole thing, and also how to interact with this data. For me, if we have Tufty, so we also have from my side tell Hans Rosling, which is one of the greatest at that time, because without, if you using Gapminder without hearing Hans Rosling, it's a little bit nothing, yeah. But if you hear him, so it's a really explosion of this data. And that's also one part I want to work with my students on it, not only taking the data, also have a good user experience in interacting with this different data. So also, because Benjamin is already looking on the watch, yeah, so I will try to be quicker. So here, 1 year later, these students picked some data and did a cut through the Earth to show on these graphs with the storage of carbon, where you can find how much carbon on Earth and under the Earth. As you also can see here in this video, that we always working with this token. It's not a pure touch here. Then 2020, we added the collaboration with the Grauser Lab with one more collaboration with Focus Terra. Focus Terra is this science museum of the ETH. And the goal of this collaboration is that one of these student projects will come into an exhibition which will start in 2025. And here we had the first round, and we had also from our side a lot of learnings about the data the students are working with, what is really the storytelling at the end. And because we figured out, okay, or also together with the Grouser Lab, that in the meanwhile, we have to shift our focus onto the different biomes to make this in this application more clear for our users. And this is the last one I want to show. It's one work which was done by these 4 students. You can see here the 9 biomes you can choose. You can also compare the different biomes. Here is really not only how much is stored on Earth and under Earth, it's also where is the potential. Where could we store more of the carbon in the future? Thank you very much. These are some of our students.
Our speakers can take a seat right in the center. I'll stop the screen. Lloyd, can you help me with stopping the Dubois beamer? Right, so thanks again for presentations. Let's move into some of the questions. You give speakers 5 minutes. I'll squeeze it down to 3.
See what happens then.
So obviously we want to make time for your questions as well. I would love to get to like 1 or 2 questions that I've prepared that I would be curious to see different approaches maybe among the 3 schools. Let's see, where do I start indeed? I think one question that definitely we had when we applied at ZHDK, and when I say we, I mean me and my partners had interactive things, is like, what other skills do I need to bring? And usually also, what skills will I learn? So let me pose this question to you, and we can go maybe like in reverse order. What's a typical profile that you look in terms of technical skills that the students should already bring going into one of the programs as a, say, as a BA student, and what can they expect to have sort of like in their tool belt coming out of the program? That would be great.
I think nowadays it would be fantastic, not only in the field of interaction or in the field of design, that you should be open for technical skills. I would say open. At the end, we try to bring some programming skills to the students, but when you are not open for that, if you don't want to learn it. So we do a lot of group work. At the end, graduating at the end, it's some of them have no skills at the end. Yeah, it's a little bit sad, but and as I started, I think nowadays you should have some programming skills for all disciplines. I would say it will help make your life easier to do something.
Good luck at HSLU, Lisa.
Yeah, I would say, quite the same. And I would maybe add that they should bring in openness and mainly also curiosity. So we can observe a lot of different trajectories. And I literally saw everything. People coming in with I never code, and they wait the 8 weeks, and now they're not stopping to code. And all the students that are coming in already with some coding skills and still use it, but maybe not in the same ambitious way as others. So I would say there's every story is possible. And I even though think where yes, as Jürg say, you have to bring in the openness, the willingness, the curiosity, but maybe more important than this, also an understanding why we use code. And of course, as the data is growing, as it's getting bigger, right? We can do some illustrator with small data, but then we come to an end. And also already if we wanted to analyze the data a little bit. So they would bring, and maybe I have to say this also, we have students with very different backgrounds. So all of them are bringing in different skills. Some are bringing in the coding skills or the graphical skills or even data science skills. Some have studied already, and we have psychology, geography, a lot of different backgrounds. And this makes the course so interesting because then the students would start to talk together and get help of each other and help them out. And I wouldn't say we have a complete peer-to-peer situation, but in some cases, this exactly starts. And this then continues during the whole 3 years. And they know exactly where the experts is. And in the best case, it's also overdue that they would help. And sometimes they know more than we do. And so, and what they bring out, it's also very diverse. It's depending much on the student themselves, how they focused during the 3 years. And I hope that they all have some understanding of data. They're not feared of data anymore, but also bring some respect toward data. And maybe most importantly, that they know who to ask. Yeah.
Arzu, you want to cover that?
Yeah, yes, of course. So FHNW is quite large. We have 5 locations and different departments. So obviously I am at a computer science department. That means that people who come to us, they need to have some enthusiasm about technology. They can have, of course, art and design background, but they need to really want to get into technology. We don't let them use off-the-shelf software, so they have to script everything. They can check out off-the-shelf software. They should know that this exists, but we want them to be able to code. Then they graduate, and if they cannot code, they have to be able to put libraries together and script. That's the minimum they have to do. This is for computer science. We have a School of Graphics, Art and Design in Basel. I think that might be more similar to actually 2 of our other speakers, 2 of our panelists. There, I think your major interest might be on the design side and technologies than at the service of the design. And here in my side, you are supposed to be interested in data science or computer science from computational perspective, but you can gain design and visualization as a flavor of that to support the rest of the process. So often we get people who are already a little bit affine to technology, and by the time they graduate, they should be able to have absolutely no trouble setting up a machine learning system if that's what's needed, or a web server, or any kind of tech stack you can think of. So we teach both front end and back end stuff to them, so they should be well versed.
Okay. Good. As the students are well versed, or hopefully they are, where do students go? Like, what's a typical trajectory of some of your students? Like, are there common paths that a lot of students go, or like is it scattershot approach where individuals go into all kinds of directions? Thinking about like what career paths do they start coming out of these programs, and maybe we just go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So both computer science and data science, they are kind of they are hammers. So that means that people can nail pretty much anything. So it is many different directions. So some of them will end up with biology focus, and some of them will be geo focus, some of them will be art focus and science focus. And so we have really people going in all directions. Those from remarkable is that visualizations are a small portion of what they learn, but we do have some, they ended up as data journalists, and one of our graduates is at the NZZ, for example. So some of them do pick up on that and get inspired and want to continue and actually make a career out of it as well. But yeah, most of them, because of the computational skills, actually go in all kinds of directions. Since it's a applied science school, many of them end up in industry, where if you continue with further academic degrees, for example, in computer science, after the 3-year bachelor's, you can get a well-paid job. So most of them don't want to do more. So we have fewer master's students than our, for example, colleagues in psychology or arts, then more people do masters there. So this is probably, broadly speaking, what I can say. Many of them work as a software person somewhere.
Yeah, we have so far 6 graduate students.
We started
with a very small group. Actually, when we started, the application was also already over. So we found some very curious, courageous this time, students who have been willing to start with us. And so far, but I think they give a very good example of where they go. So we have one of those students who also now is doing a voluntariat at NZZ as data journalist. And they're also sort of in a cooperation, so we do a lot of storytelling with them. We have one storytelling module, so the one is there. And I think we have another students who will start in autumn again from those who are graduating now. And then we have one student that would go into a design agency or data design agency. And we have also one student who is freelancing. And another example, of course, we also students doing masters and continuing, because the bachelor, it's a 3 years program, right? And of course, we're specialized on data visualization, but we have also to educate in all the skills. So they have to know what design is, what art could be maybe. And so they have to learn everything too. So there's a lot of possibilities also to a master's in very different directions afterwards. And then we have students now, they told me they want to go to work in NGOs to do data story stuff, or they will want to go into science and visualize actually data with towards research projects. So also we have a very broad interest and possibilities to go in different kinds of directions.
Excuse me, ZHDK. I know all these sentences.
Both of us said NZZ. We
Primed about
you.
your client,
Yes.
about the project, what you're doing for NZZ.
Yeah. Anymore? No. I know where like my Jahrgang went, and like couple above, couple below, but like what does it look like now? Where do people graduate go after? What's a typical career path right now?
I would say most of our graduate students are going, but it's I would say a thing of Zurich, because they all want to stay here. I have the feeling, yeah. AHV and all these stuff keeps them really close to where they come from, yeah. And in the moment, I would say in Zurich, our graduates are needed in UI, UX, yeah, when they graduate. We can tell, so what are you doing? What's your title in the moment?
I'm a product designer at Neon Switzerland, so mobile banking app.
UX, UI.
So, to alumni, yeah, 21 Okay. And so I would say a lot of them are going in that direction. When they are more going in your generation of graduates. 2 days ago, one from 2011 contacted me because he needs more really good people. Yeah. And he is head of product design at Roche. Yeah. And so your generation are running their own studio. Yeah. I think after a few years, a lot of these people are doing that. Because they all think life is more easier, yeah, to be your own boss, yeah. And the other who are still employed are one also 2008, but diploma is head of digital product at SFL. For example, and so I analyzed it via LinkedIn when we had our 20th anniversary, and I saw, hopefully they all are on a fresh level on LinkedIn, but I would say most of them really UX something, and some are more in the programming part, but these are all students. They had during their studying also already the passion for code and numbers, yeah, and so they continue, but only a few of them.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see the other question that I had that I was curious, and I think Jürgen already spoke about the collaboration that your program has with the Browser Lab. So I was curious to hear maybe from the other two panelists about like what types of collaborations with outside partners do you engage with, if you do at all, and what's so like what role do collaborations with, I guess, sort of real world problems have for the students and for the program itself?
Should I jump in?
Sure.
So yeah, we do a lot of that. So there's both collaborations with other academic institutions and also with industry partners. So we do a lot of student projects with industry partners. One of them sits right there. So we have sometimes people come to us and say, I have this problem, can it be solved through a student project? So real world problem. Then our bachelor students, usually at this level, 5th or 6th semester projects, they try to attack the problem, and then we have a touch with a real world problem, and then our students attempt solving it, and sometimes they do surprisingly good job. Sometimes mixed results, but for most like almost 80% of our student projects are real world driven.
Okay.
And then we also have in data science program we issue data challenges, and that means that if somebody has, like some medical person comes and says, I have national genetic data and I don't know what to do with it, so I'm a doctor. And then we say, okay, let's issue a data challenge to our students and say, this is what the data contains, and your job is to make this accessible. So they do both visualization and other data analysis on these data sets. Sometimes these partners are international as well. So we have collaborations, for example, right now active with US and Brazil for our data program. And we also have a lot of national collaborations also with University of Zurich. We have a lot going on. I think we did projects with ETH recently. So we do have both academic and industry collaborations. For a School of Applied Sciences, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the concept, but the mandate is really to bring science to markets and services. So we are, by federal mandate, our job is to make sure that it actually leaves the academia and goes to the people. So we are supposed to be that bridge. So that's why 80% of our stuff is in touch with the real world, I would say. 20% is what we dream of and explore. And the 80% is actually driven by problems like that. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you. Isa, how is it at the HSLU so far?
Yes, we have different kinds and grades of cooperations, also in academics, in industry, science, and but also in the arts field, actually. And so maybe to name some science, real world, as you call it, collaboration. Yeah, last year we had the focus team on forests, and we kept it open, forest, and could do anything. You could look at the tree or at forest development or climate and CO2 and other topics. So there we had a cooperation with the Institute for Forest, Snow and Landscape, WSL it's called now, and also a little bit linked to the ETH, and they would bring us the data and come to our atelier, and what we then do with the students that we use those people, and this is something we want to develop further, enhance as so-called data codes, that they would then work together with the students. So in real, this is still it's the touch points are less that what we want, but we are working toward that. And this gives the chance to the experts or to the main holders to actually see what we can do with the data and to get another sight on the data. And on the other hand, our students learn to communicate and to questionize and to think about real world questions. Right? So that's the one thing as one example. I mean, maybe just mention one example for each. So we have in the art area, we, for example, did then more teaching collaboration together with the with Rimini Protocol. Maybe some of you know it. It's a theater collective that was doing a lot of the 100% Zurich installation at the Gessner area was from them. And we had those people in to work together with our students on a data performance. This was also about mental health and how to do a participative performance together with students and the public. So we want to try to make these kinds of collaborations. And right now we have collaborations also with the FHNW, yeah, with Wim Nieuwenboom from Social. Who would also help us out with data on mental health. We did collaborate one with iArt also about the dome, the new research center for where we could use the energy data of the roof to visualize on a concept phase how this roof could look with visualized energy data. So yes, we try a lot around. I don't know, it's not maybe as deep and then applicable as you do. I would rather say we do a lot of ideation with these partners, but this is very important for us too. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool. I have one more hard question, and then I would love to open it to you. As a student, people are sort of like enthusiastic. They are like active. They love to collaborate with others. At times, they might be naive about the work that they do. So especially if working with the material of data, how data is being collected, who data represents, become harder questions to answer. So I'm curious to maybe hear if any work is being done with the students to like teach them about ethical practices when working with data, both in terms of like collecting the data, storing it, but then also like using it to tell stories, as you mentioned, and like what types of stories and with what, how much caveat those stories are being told. So I'm curious if any sort of like ethical consideration are being taught, or are students being sensitized to help them think through implications that data is, yes, it's a material, but it's not a neutral material as it is captured typically from people. So just an easy question to round it up.
Yeah, I think that it's very important, yeah, to bring this to the students, yeah. Also, I want to have critical students, yeah, and so not only taking databases and work with that and visualize it a little bit, that's completely naive, yeah. And so we have it on a theory level, which is running parallel to the course where they get from a theory side some texts and thinking discussion of that.
Okay. HSLU.
Yes, we have also a strand that is going through all modules. So I told you about these focus modules, think, play, and share, but then these modules are actually very mixed. So we would bring in different content, and one path is the data literacy path, actually. And of course, they would learn technical stuff, but mainly also theoretic approach. They have some literacy, they have to read, they have to write. We would bring guests inside it, and we are establishing now these so-called data circles also, where they talk. So it's really a lot about talking about data together, and then exactly think about ethical questions, the critical scrutinize the content. And but not only as a term, of course, we all want to do critical thinking, but really I think to be able to critically think, you have also to be challenged with data and not coming further, right? So you have to fail, maybe sometimes you have to feel frustrated. And then there's one very interesting moment when we maybe bring people in from statistics or data science. The students would start to understand that they have exactly the same questions, maybe on the same level, on another level. Of course, they know more. But at the end, there was also this uncertainty. I'm doing the right thing. I'm using the right data. Does it make sense ethically to frame a question like this or that? And we try to generate kind of a safe space where we say everything is possible, and any opinion can be, of course, argumented against it. But yeah, let's try to talk about it and find solutions.
Thank you. All right, Arzu.
We are a School of Engineering and Computer Science. So we do things because we can. It is one of the hardest things, really. So I think most of our students come and they are extremely focused on how to do things and how to do that. And I keep challenging them, why? Why is this a good way? Why do we do this? Why? What is the implications for the people who might be affected by it? But from the programs themselves, we don't have an explicit ethics module, which I think we should. But I finish all my lectures with an ethics module, or something of like towards the end is like, now let's think about what that does to people, and especially with AI coming in, I think that's going to be more and more and more important. But we do have, even though we are a School of Engineering and Social Computer Science, we have a Social Sciences Institute, and there's courses offered by them that also includes soft skills as an engineering perspective. So that includes some of those conversations also with people who come from social science backgrounds. It challenges our students, but I think they need to be challenged. Many of them are extremely, really just driven to like build this, and they don't think further, or they don't want to care more. So it's quite a difficult thing to strike, but I think it's the correct audience to challenge. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So I think I have all my burning questions answered. So I would like to open up if there are any questions from the audience. First, looking here, then maybe we can look into online. So any immediate questions that come to your mind? Please.
Question.
I will do the mic thing just so that people on the screen also can.
My question is, get into data visualization. Do you have to be an art, or is that something that you develop over time? Like I'm an engineer, like I'm doing data science right now, so I'm on the more technical side. But do you have to be like, how creative do you have to be, kind of thing? Or yeah, and do you develop that over time in the program, basically?
Most important. I think artist is all a big term. I don't know if we have artists at the end. Maybe one of a lot of students. How do we define artists at the end? So I'm very careful with this term in the way of saying I'm getting artists. But yeah, I would say you need to have an interest in creativity, and of course it also, that's what we tell, it helps if you have some, not a career, but if you observe on yourself that you always drew or you always sketched, and somehow you have a visual approach to what you are doing, and a visual interest in what you are doing. And of course there are creativity techniques, but there's also maybe some ways you can learn. But yeah, and then I think you just have to find out. So if the interest is here, it's already a lot.
I can chime in on there. I think that there's perhaps a functional data visualization and there's an aesthetic data visualization. If the same person has both, it's great. But if the same person doesn't have both, they don't really have to. So you can also collaborate. So if you are able to say that, you know, my visualization does the job, it's like almost like an industrial design question. So it's like it does the job, it conveys the information, and I have evidence for it, and I understand how to measure that, like that people can see what they need to see. I talk about, when I talk about this to my students, I talk about, like, if you're designing for an ambulance driver, a map, it's a completely different question than if you're designing something for someone who's maybe planning their next trip to Japan, which then they have all the time in the world, you know, they can. So this really priorities, if you understand the priorities of the context of the user, that's what I call functional design, so that you can make sure that the information that people need to see is really immediately visible, and you understand that kind of thing. That doesn't require art. However, if you want it memorable, if you want it desirable, if you want it engaging, there comes the art. And I think there, if you have some interest, it's not, you don't have to be artistic in the beginning, but if you have an interest, I think you can explore, take a few online courses, visit some of the courses our colleagues offer here, potentially, and complete that part. And if it seems like it's completely impossible and that's not in you, then you can collaborate with an artist and say, can you prove that for me? And I think it's not out of question to do it right, even if you're not one yourself.
Just one thing to add. So the aesthetic is a really important part, because going back to Tufte and Rosling, they did visualizations, but they are not designers and no artists. They are coming from completely different fields. Yeah. When you are coming from engineering, yeah, so all these visual things have this worth thing, honestly, that they also run when they don't run. When you're doing engineering, there is only 0 or 1. Yeah. So it only runs when it really runs. Yeah, that's what I want to say. It's to design, to visualize something, it depends on which level. Yeah. If you're doing stuff like interactive things, yeah, so you are a really high level. So you have to be a designer, a really good designer, to get to this.
you to the panelists bringing fire answers here. Other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
I have a question. Thank you very much, first of all. I have a question about the openness of the academic space and the institutions towards other broader audience beyond the students, basically. So to the communities, to independent researchers, to anyone who might be potentially interested in collaboration or other sorts of inquiries. So like I've seen, Jürgen, in your presentation, you have all sorts of fancy and cool robotics and tech and things like that. And you have very welcoming and open atelier and studio. You have pretty cool connections with different research groups. So I'm just curious, like if an independent researcher comes in, or if someone wants to come in and use the facilities and the tools, what's the school policies towards the openness and the community engagement?
Bueno.
If I would be the boss, so you are really welcome. Yeah. But I'm not, and the school policy is that you have to studying there to go in and work in the workshop or wherever. Yeah. So it's not that open for everyone. I think.
So in my, you want to go?
I'm thinking of the answer. It's also it's open to all students, of course. It's open to all teachers, collaborators. Thank you. And it's also open if you come in to do collaboration, to do a teaching collaboration, then we can experiment together. But it's not completely open that anyone comes. And this has certainly political reasons, but this has also reasons that it's actually, there are a lot of students that use the infrastructure too. So, but there are always ways we can go into a collaboration. We just have to find the right setting.
I would say it's similar to what you said. For we try to enable that. So we are always open for the dialogue, and then we want to understand a bit what the requests are, and for commercial versus non-profit, it's a little different. So non-profits, we probably are, if the priority is the students and internal colleagues, but if they are not using a space or a lab and there's a non-profit who wants to use it, we open it. Most likely you will get a yes, but we are always listening to what the request is. If it's an industry partner with for-profit organization, we also have ways to collaborate with them. So there are funding models that allow us to collaborate. We do a lot of InnoSwiss projects. InnoSwiss is a program from the government exactly for that, industry academia collaboration. So we look for co-funding, and then we have a formal relationship. Then we can enable collaboration. Or there are foundations that might fund something that is depending on the goal of the work. So we always try to listen to partners that come, or student projects that we also talked about earlier. But also there's external lecturers. We have a bunch of design modules, and we are a computer science team, so we don't really employ a lot of designers. So we actually contract them. We have a lot of people who only do one lecture for us as on a room basis. So there are ways to do this also with people who are not employed at the institute or studying there. There are so if you have interest, you should start the dialogue and see where it goes. Yeah.
Right, I'm gonna take maybe two of the online questions to be also able or responsive to that audience. First, trying to make that rapid fire. what tools and technologies do you think future students should engage with now, like should start to pick up in order to be successful at your programs? I think you mentioned like 1 or 2 things in terms of, you said programming. More concretely, maybe what types of programming will they learn, or will they have to apply, just to give them some pointers? I'm looking at you, or let's start with the programming.
Are you ready to answer? Go.
You will have the big thing to
The computer science. I will be quick. I think right now, generative AI. So AI creates the code, and then you should be able to patch that together into like, well, you should be able to debug it. And I think this is the direction that it is going. And of course, you need to learn enough technologies to be able to create the code that you want. But going from generative AI to data visualization, going from generative AI to the code that can create the visualizations that you want, might be an interesting space for the next couple of years, because everything is shifting that direction.
Gotcha. My heart is absolutely bleeding hearing this answer.
I'm sorry.
People applying to interactive things, please don't. That's what you're doing.
I knew I was hurting you.
Absolutely. All good. Isabelle, what's expected at HSLU? In terms of, or what programming languages will they learn, and what would be great if they already maybe learned in their spare time in preparing for the BA?
We have so many discussions about this. So I'm not sure if I should give an answer on this, because I think or maybe rather like this. There's also always the discrepancy. I think you have to have the most important competence is to being able to switch, because the world is changing. I mean, what we start now, maybe in 3 years, is already obsolete, right? So of course there's some basics you can learn in coding that you just have to know, and then you can apply it in different languages. But much more important than talking about tools and techniques is, and especially now also for 1 year that we have chat and everything, I think what we try is much more important to understand the concepts beyond. So, and to have an understanding, maybe also what the beauty of code could be, and why you would use code, and then also understand the response ChatGPT is giving you back if you use it, or how you would put your prompts to help. And this helps us a lot, I have to say, because we are not so strong maybe in coding. So students would start right away to ask, but then we observe that the output is, I don't know how many lines of code, and you could phrase it in very small units. And so I think it's important to understand the concept of it, and then to apply it to different tools. And the tool is not so important.
Anything to add?
Would say a good starting point is basic web technologies, processing stuff, yeah. But I also have potential students in the interview. They have Python skills or stuff like this, yeah. So it's fine. So that shows me, okay, they are quite open, yeah. They already started, or they have an apprenticeship done, yeah. And so they have, I think, a bigger backpack with all these technology skills, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I have a second question from online, which shifts the topic quite some, which is, I think, adequate as we have educators here. So the question is, what methods do you use to get feedback from your students, and how do you sort of like process that feedback, or let that feedback influence the course or class or module design?
Yeah, sure.
The feedback is very important to us, and we try to listen. Of course, we can't always find an answer, but we try. Of course, one feedback doesn't mean that it stands for the whole group. So we have to be very careful with feedback, sometimes let time, and there's things that are obvious or not. So what we do, we try to have to receive feedback in very different formats and forms. So at the end of the module, we try to do I didn't mention that we have a very big team, but a great team actually. We are about 24 people lecturing, and so every person brings also another cultural feedback. But what we try is to give them feedback at the end of a module, collectively as class, but also individually or by groups. And then we have other formats. So I myself, for example, see all students every semester. I would have a short talk. I had to reduce it to 20 minutes. At the beginning, this was more, but with every single student to talk about how they are doing, what the objectives and goals are for the future, and also just give space and room if there should be something that they want to discuss, but maybe don't dare to. And then we have, of course, also evaluations, but this we do in a much broader way. Yeah. So we have different ways of receiving feedback and then applying feedback. And as we are anyway in the very beginning development phase, and maybe now for the first time we had the whole program running through with the bachelor, so we can slowly start to adapt. But so we are here. I would really say we are quite agile and try to adapt where it's necessary.
We have this institutionalized evaluations, obviously, every end of the semester or so. Students receive a questionnaire about the class. We can modify that questions ourselves, so to make specific about the courses that we teach. And then we are also institutionally forced to share the evaluations with the students. In the last week of the class, we show what they thought, and then that opens a conversation. That's a group conversation for the most part. And if, of course, the class has 40 people and only 2 of them answered, probably things are fine. So people who have strong opinions, either positively or negatively, tend to answer those institutional evaluations. But this is that part, so that's the formal part. And then, of course, if there's a unified voice that comes and everybody says this is too much work for 3 credits, then we are like, oops, okay. So we try to correct it for the next time we offer the course. And of course, this what you said about like if they don't dare to speak, it can happen in groups. So it's good. Anonymous surveys are that way good, or opening the doors or doing office hours so people can come and do one-on-one. We try to do that. And then for the bachelor's or 5th semester projects, also that's more personal for us. They can be either individuals or teams of 2. And at the end of that, we also have a feedback session. We tell them how the semester went, and they tell us how it went for them from the supervisor's or teacher's perspective. And there isn't a formal process to follow up whether the feedback is integrated. That is a bit at the discretion of the teachers and professors. Perhaps something to think about, but
No, I have in my courses a lot of feedback on different levels. So at the end of the module, in the whole class, and then that also the shy people or who has a really hard critique. So I have a survey sending out. So for these people, then I have a single feedback for group feedback of the work, what they did and what they delivered. We have also the institutional evaluation. We have a semester feedback where the class speaker are hearing into the class and bringing for each semester the feedback into that round where lecturers, assistant researchers are sitting there who are involved in lecturing the students. Yeah. But one question how serious do we take the feedback? Yeah, which is how is it coming back into the curriculum? Me, I sometimes have to be a little bit not that open, yeah, because sometimes I react too much of all these feedback, yeah. So it means students also are also quite good lecturers, yeah. So they know how a course should be structured and what kind of input they need, yeah. And I take this serious, yeah. So, but the funny thing is also in courses, I got the feedback, okay, we need more material to read and all this stuff. And then I collect stuff over years, yeah, I really important papers. And after the last data with course, then I asked into the class, what did you read? 0. There was only one student that was so happy, and I say, thank you very much. There is one person for whom I did all these work. But there was from her the feedback that it was really great stuff to read and go over it. But that's also a thing probably of our time, because we don't have to go to somewhere to pick up a book like this, yeah, to read. Sometimes I have the feeling the students starting collecting whatever they get, but only that they know I have it. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, but don't go over it. And then when there is feedback like, okay, this point missed, and then okay, but if you don't read, so I can't. If you only have 4 weeks, yeah, so it's so jam-packed to go through that, and collaboration partner behind you, yeah, so that's also some pressure for me, yeah. And then there is a collaboration like Focus Terra, so the vision to bring one of these student works to an exhibition which should run for 1 year.
You already channeled the pressure from industry into the academy, I see. We're at time, we're a little bit over time. So let's wrap up the official part. If the speakers are so kind to like hang out and have a drink, grab them if you have more questions. Also for you, feel free to hang around. We're probably gonna wrap up a little bit in maybe like 30, 40 minutes. We'll be kind, we'll ring the gong. That's probably gonna be the time to start moving out. But again, thank you so much first to the speakers. Thank you again to everybody who joined us today. Let's give them one more round of applause, please.
Vielen Dank. Genau, nächstes gerne. Es ist einfach das Programm.